Ahora daremos paso a un primer panel de intervenciones de personas que conocieron a Ruth Bader Ginsburg, sus familiares, magistrados del Tribunal Supremo de los Estados Unidos, los law clerks que le ayudaron a elaborar sus sentencias y escritos durante el tiempo que administró justicia en el Tribunal Supremo, y algunas amistades. Todas ellas compartirán con nosotros la influencia y el impacto que ha tenido Ruth Bader Ginsburg como madre, como jurista y como mito. En primer lugar, es para mí un honor dar paso a la primera intervención del juez del Tribunal Supremo de los Estados Unidos, señor Stephen Breyer, que intervendrá con la proyección de un vídeo. Adelante.
This is an honor for me as president of the World Jurist Association to welcome you to this tribute to Justice Ginsburg, your colleague and your friend. How would you describe her figure and her impact in your life?
Well, I think the best thing she was an amazing person. She had an enormous impact on my life. Let me say for you what I've said to other people and wrote down, because I've been asked this question and I've written it down, and it's not very long. And it catches how I felt, because I was attending a religious service when I heard of her death. Amazing. Right in the middle of it. And there we are. And so these thoughts went through my mind. I just had heard of this. I knew it was inevitable, but I just heard of it, and I thought, well, Ruth, my goodness, how can I describe her? A great justice, a woman of valor, that's biblical, correct, a rock of righteousness, and my very, very good friend. She will be remembered, as you're remembering her, as a brilliant judge, a great jurist who did very much for women, and indeed for everybody. And she did that before she became a justice, and she did that after she became a justice. What was she like? Well, she was intelligent. She was logical. She was hardworking. Her opinions reflect her principles. When I wanted to know what she was thinking, and I always wanted to know what she was thinking, I would read her memos and her drafts. Her analysis of a case, this is her as a professional, would be clear, true to the record, true to the party's arguments. She would explain the law succinctly, yet she didn't omit necessary detail. And as a justice, her opinions reflect her basic decency as a person. She understood the basic indecency of discrimination and unfair treatment. She correctly assumed that law is trying to help people lead better lives. She was a woman who made this world a better place for us to live in. She did that in big ways, but she did that in small ways too. She paid attention to detail. That included her clothes. She was always dressed well. She loved those ruffs she wore with her robes on the bench. I remember going with her when she was buying some. She paid attention too to the details of human relations. Just a few weeks before she died, she sent my newly born grandchild a t-shirt, which I saw a picture of him the other day, and he was wearing it. It said, "Future RBG Law Clerk." And the note that she sent with it said, "Now this is too big for you. It's going to have to be for Ryan," that's his older half brother, "until you get big enough to fill it." I like that. I hope he likes that or will like that. She was a thoughtful person. Now, Ruth, when you know her well, you'll see that she understood not every silence has to be filled. My wife told me that's something I should learn. But that's what she was like. And she'd think before she spoke. Now there's a thought, but she would, even on social occasions. But she did have a good sense of humor. Over the years, I would go into her office from time to time to tell her something I thought was funny and say, Ruth, what do you think of this? And she'd find it funny. And we'd talk about it as long as I didn't stay too long. And if I stayed too long, she'd stand up right from behind her desk. And I knew what that meant. That meant she wanted to get back to work. And that's what she did. Ruth was a rock. When I came back to the District of Columbia for her service and went into my office, I found a birthday card she'd sent on my birthday a few weeks before. The card had a picture of her, and it said, quote, I order you to have a happy birthday. It added, to my younger colleague, stay cool and well. And she underlined younger, which she thought was very funny indeed. I liked it too. She wrote, quote, we'll get together when this epidemic is over, and we'll see an opera, and life will go on. And even now, I think of that, and it cheers me up. What was it like to work with Ruth? Well, it was interesting. It was challenging. It was educational. She was a person that more that you knew her, the longer that you knew her, the better that you liked her. And I did know her for many years, and I did like her very much. And I miss Ruth. I miss her very much indeed.
Bien, qué bonitas palabras. Es ahora un privilegio dar la palabra a la catedrática de Derecho de Propiedad Intelectual de la Universidad de Columbia e hija de la homenajeada, señora Jane Ginsburg. Dear Jane, the floor is yours.
Muchas gracias, Eugenia. Agradezco a todos de estar aquí y por la red. First of all, my gratitude to the World Jurist Association for creating the Ruth Bader Ginsburg Medal of Honor and for dedicating part of its 2021 Congress to her memory. It has been an honor and a pleasure for me to serve on the commission to select the extraordinarily distinguished inaugural recipients of the Ruth Bader Ginsburg Award. The title of this session, Mother, Jurist, and Myth, covers a great deal of ground. I will leave the mythological aspects to others. That said, I do not doubt that my mother would have been delighted to be elevated to the ranks of Athena, goddess of wisdom, and occasionally of just fights. On the other hand, she might have been less pleased to be the sole female celebrated for her intelligence in a male-dominated pantheon, a position she in fact occupied unhappily during the years in which she was the only woman justice on the Supreme Court between the retirement of Justice Sandra Day O'Connor and the appointment of Justice Sonia Sotomayor. Turning to the other categories, mother and jurist, as is well known, my mother was both of these at a time when very few women, and even fewer mothers, were jurists. Not only was the bench practically devoid of women, but women's presence in the bar or among the professorate was exceedingly sparse. Motherhood in the late 1950s and early 1960s, when she was studying and then seeking to practice law, almost guaranteed exclusion from the profession. In going through her papers after she died, I found a letter from a leading New York law firm, which in 1958 had hired her as a summer associate, but then declined to offer her permanent employment. The letter did not explicitly acknowledge her maternity, but its reference to the superior competitiveness of those the firm did hire revealed the true reason for her failure to measure up. All of the successful candidates were men. Today, the titles mother and jurist no longer form an oxymoron. Today's event celebrates my mother's role in that evolution, among other achievements. But she was not satisfied to see women enter the profession, which they have done in ever greater numbers since the 1950s. She often observed that remaining and rising in the profession continue to pose challenges to women, and especially to mothers. The United States falls far behind many industrialized democracies in its absence of a comprehensive paid family leave plan. And even where leave may be available, the ethos of many law firms and other businesses discourages having or caring for children, lest the young professional be put on the mommy track to permanent subordinate status and lower remuneration. The pandemic has also disproportionately punished mothers in the legal profession and beyond. If one parent must stay home with the children when the schools are closed, that parent will be the one who makes less money, and guess who that is likely to be. As my mother frequently emphasized, until fathers take and revel in equal responsibility for child rearing and other domestic obligations, women will not have attained full equality. How far are we from achieving male buy-in to gender equality? My mother's career illustrates the strategy of awakening men to the depredations of sex discrimination through cases in which laws imposing gender differentials disadvantaged men. The most celebrated and successful of these cases was Weinberger versus Weisenfeld, the so-called baby case, in which a unanimous Supreme Court ruled that granting a Social Security benefit so that widowed mothers could stay home to raise their children, while denying the same benefit to widowed fathers, violated the equal protection of the laws. Even the justice who had consistently dissented from earlier sex discrimination cases that my brother brought to the court joined his brethren, as they all then were, because the law discriminated against the baby. Of course, as my mother would be the first to acknowledge, the law does not move forward until society does. It becomes possible to show that sex discrimination hurts men too when men like Stephen Weisenfeld take on roles traditionally associated with women. But even men whose own careers may have conformed closely to gender stereotypes may come to understand the importance of equal treatment of men and women if those men have daughters for whose success they aspire. My mother observed how that same recalcitrant justice's views evolved toward her views as his daughters grew up and struggled to advance careers and family. It is my hope that the award that the World Jurist Association established in my mother's honor will, by holding up the inspiring examples of 8 exceptional women jurists, contribute to the progress toward true equality of men and women in the legal profession and beyond.
Thank you so much, Jane. A continuación, es un placer compartir con vosotros el vídeo de la ceremonia de entrega del World Peace and Liberty Award a la jueza Ruth Bader Ginsburg, que tuvo lugar en febrero de 2020 en Washington, en la sede de la American Bar Association.
We are all here with probably the most acclaimed judge in the world.
And part of our role, I believe, as lawyers in this wonderful country is to make sure that we follow the lead of Justice Ginsburg.
The stability of constitutional government and the continuation of respect for the rule of law rest in large part on the faith the citizens have in the integrity of their judges.
And certainly the cornerstone of that trust and confidence is a public understanding about the law.
Despite strong opposition for certain powerful groups, a young attorney and a law professor named Ruth Bader Ginsburg maintained with energy her view.
Vital to the rule of law in any land is an independent judiciary, judges who are not under the thumb of other branches of government to administer justice impartially.
The Constitution is more than a set of rules. It's a kind of civic education proposal for the whole society. We only learn a bit about the Constitution if we go to a law school.
And sometimes we even find a popular film can be a way to teach stories and lessons about democracy. As we all know in this country, in the life of Justice Ginsburg's story.
In the name of all of us who have heard her, I want to congratulate Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg for this well-deserved award.
Judges are human, and they are fallible, because the natural state of humankind is imperfection. But despite our fallibility, it is our sacred charge to uphold the law and administer justice fairly to all persons, no matter how powerful or small.
Un emotivo recuerdo de aquel día. Ahora me complace dar la palabra a Viviane Reding, presidenta de la World Law Foundation y vicepresidenta de la Comisión Europea durante los años 2010-2014, para que modere y dé comienzo el panel con las jóvenes estudiantes de distintas edades que tuvieron la oportunidad de conocer y conversar con la jueza Ginsburg con motivo de la ceremonia de entrega del World Peace and Liberty Award. Dear Viviane, the floor is yours.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it was an exceptional and moving moment you have just seen in the film. Washington, 7th of February 2020. We had assembled in order to present the World Peace and Liberty Award to Justice Ginsburg. And during the ceremony at the American Bar Association, Justice Ginsburg had a very solemn expression adapted to the circumstances when you receive the so-called Nobel Prize for the Rule of Law. And then, all of a sudden, her eyes sparkled, and there was a large smile on her face. She had spotted the 3 young women who were to hand over the award to her. It was as if she saw in these 3 young women a symbol for her fight for equality and against discrimination, and a sign that her words had been heard, understood, and acted upon. To quote Ruth Ginsburg, progress is not linear. the struggle to repair the world never ceases, and it has to be fought for by each generation. And the next generation was handing over the award to her. I think that was as important for Ruth Ginsburg as the reward herself. Now we have today with us these young women and young girls who were present and who handed over the reward. So let me start with Leah Navalon. Leah, come here. Sit there. Leah is 13 years old, and she defines herself as Judeo-Christian artist and creator. But she is not only in definitions, she is in action. She's an actor, performing in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. She's a dancer, flamenco. She is a singer, made a voice solo at the Carnegie Hall in an international competition. She's a poet, reciting in school performance, and she has a social engagement, singing in rehabilitation centers. So in one word, changing the world in order to be a better place for all, doing what Ginsburg has said. And then Alexandra Black. She's 24 years old, from New York, after her BA in business school. She works as an advertisement strategist, concentrating on consumer interaction and social accountability. And in her engagement in theater and arts, because you cannot just do one thing in life, she tries to bring people together. In her own words, I quote her, "Make spaces accessible, safe, and welcoming for all." And there was a third one, Arantxa Cremades, but she texted me this morning that she had an urgent meeting at the hospital. So Arantxa cannot be with us, but let me present her briefly, because she was a jurist, 20 years old, and she has obtained her degree in law from the University of Madrid. Besides that, she's a pianist and a social worker with missionaries in Calcutta, with elderly care in Colombia, and with the renovation of a school in Slovenia. She would have been the only jurist on our panel, so I'm very grateful to Emma Bridger, a law student, that she replaces her friend Arantxa, who could not, unfortunately, be with us today. If you are presented to a myth and you are in front of this woman who is bigger than the person you see in front of you with all this reputation, Leah, what was your first reaction?
Well, I was really astounded to be there and just having the opportunity to meet her, because it was just amazing.
But the day before, I think, you have presented a text which you had written. And Ruth Ginsburg had a very specific reaction at that moment. What was that reaction?
Well, she had said she didn't want to answer to anyone who was talking that day, but she answered to us after, I think I said the speech, and she said that she wanted for girls like us to be able to use their God-given talents and to not be based onto the limitations based on our gender, or, yeah.
Well, you see, Ruth Ginsburg, you made her speech. President Cremades didn't manage, but a 12-year-old made Ruth Ginsburg stand up and speak her heart. And what was your experience, Alexandra, when you were presented with this role model? Is she a role model for you, or will she be?
Oh, absolutely. I would say growing up in America, born a few years after her appointment, you know about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, especially as a young woman. So you think you know what to expect. You know, you find out how relatable she is, how much she's done for all of us. And I was so wrong in terms of my expectations meeting her. When you first see her, she was this amazing force. Some may say that she looked fragile, but to me, she was an absolute rock walking into the room. So to be able to actually see her and appreciate her and have, at the time, 23 years of moments of inspiration and gratitude to her just hitting you at once was not only a once-in-a-lifetime experience, but a once-in-a-lifetime feeling.
Emma, you are the only jurist here. So you, as a young driving jurist, you want to do your life, I suppose, in this profession. What lesson did Justice Ginsburg give to you?
She really set the example of hard work and you know, being a woman living in a man's world, that should not be the norm, and that we should work hard towards making sure that everybody has equal rights, and that everybody should work hard towards their goals.
Well, you have understood that what Ruth was doing was not only seeing that law was applied, she was seeing that society was changed. And that society is changing. We have heard it from so many speeches before, but we see now 3 examples here in front of us. And I think that Justice Ginsburg would be very happy seeing you here tonight, and with a big smile in her face. Thank you very much.